If I had to define myself in one word, it would be storyteller. I'm a leader, I'm a journalist, I'm a scientist. Through all these aspects of my identity, I've had to tell stories, to share my voice and often the voices of others as well with the world. I've spoken with leaders such as United States Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen or former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki. I've published research work about saving bees or filtering polluted water. I fought to get organizations like a journalism nonprofit for youth or an advocacy initiative for bees off the ground. But my voice isn't always heard. Women in journalism consistently face gender-based discrimination. In fact, the Reuters Institute reports that women make up 40% of journalists, but only 24% of top editorial positions. And it doesn't stop there. The Pew Research Institute reports that only 15% of journalists who cover sports, 39% who cover government and politics, and 38% who cover science and technology are women. Not only are women the minority in journalism leadership, but they're also being pushed out of covering important topics such as politics and STEM. So why is this so problematic? Journalism is one of the main ways people's stories can be told. Without female reporters, female voices often go underrepresented and even unheard. Women already face discrimination in politics and STEM. For example, the Academy on Women's Leadership reports that only 29.2% of the STEM workforce is female. Additionally, women face issues such as femicide or gender-based violence that often lacks proper media coverage. When the reporters covering these stories are mostly male, then that inequality only worsens. Women's voices vanish from the narrative, perpetuating a cycle of discrimination. Who a story reaches matters just as much as whether that story is told. So today, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you about Janet Yellen, the first female chair of the Federal Reserve and the first female Treasury Secretary, who asked to be called chair instead of chairwoman or chairman. Let me tell you about Kim Ng, the first female general manager in Major League Baseball history, who chose to leave the Miami Marlins rather than be replaced. Let me tell you about Joyce Masuya, the UN Assistant Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, who explained how she emphasizes empathy, support, and fun in her leadership. When they spoke to me, all three of these women expressed gratitude for getting to where they are today. But above all, they were confident. Yellen, Ng, and Masuya knew that they deserved to be the leaders that they are. Through their words, they showed their resilience in breaking through the glass ceiling and the power to keep climbing upwards. They are the women who can bridge the gender gap in leadership. But without people like me, without the journalists who will tell their stories, their voices and the messages that they want to share will remain unheard. We need more women in STEM, in politics, in sports, but we also need more allies in the media. We need people who will tell the stories of the future, the stories of women, because we will not be silenced any longer. So, what can we do? After all, amid the political polarization of today's world, it seems especially difficult to combat gender inequality among so many other crises. I find myself turning to my generation, the youth who will inherit this world. We are the ones who will become the next leaders, the next journalists, the next scientists. We are the ones who can create a future that we want to grow up in. When I was in middle school, I was the only girl in my advanced math class. Now, in high school, I am one of 3 girls in my science class with 14 students. At speech and debate tournaments, my male competitors are called confident, while I'm often criticized for being too loud or too much. But I keep attending speech and debate tournaments. I keep on pursuing my journalism work. I keep on participating in science fair competitions again and again and again. Because I'm a leader. I'm a journalist. I'm a scientist. Like Yellen, Aang, Masuya, and so many others before me, I will keep fighting for my voice to be heard. And I urge the rest of the young generation to do the same. Apply for that STEM camp. Run for that student council position. Don't let your story fade away. Be a storyteller. Because if we don't raise our voices, then who will hear us speak? Thank you.